Hello, let me walk you through the Windows deployment and the auto unattended answer file I created for our lab here. So on my deployment server, I have my custom image I captured. I have two images. I have my custom image I captured. My boot image, I have my boot image from server 2016 ISO file that I extracted. So I do have two custom files. Let me go to my Windows System Image Manager. I did create two custom answer files, once for the Windows pre-installation and once for the out-of-box experience. So the first one is the auto unattended file over here. You can give it any name. Over here, what I have changed is you need to add the Windows International Core WinPE pre-installation. This is the part that where all the answers that you give to the post installation. For an example, the language, keyboard layout, the partition that you need to create, and information of your image that needs to pull out from the deployment server. So the language here, ENUS for US. I filled all these ones. You already have the file that you need for this. This is just an overview. Make sure on the disk configuration for Windows 10 you need to have 4 different partitions. If you ever installed custom Windows 10, you might have seen when you create a partition, it automatically create all these 3 partitions for you. The first one is for the primary partition. It has to be false. The order is 1, size is 450. Second partition is full, order is 2, size is 100. This is the EFI partition, especially for the if you're using the UEFI BIOS. Partition 3, false, order is 3, size is 16, MSR. Partition 4 is the partitions where you're going to be installed the operating system. That's why we have it size empty. It has to be primary partition for the operating system to be installed. On the modify section, first one has to be NTFS, WinRE, order is 1, partition ID is 1. You might not need the type ID. I haven't tried it without it. You can give it a try to see if it works. The second one is the FAT32 system, order is 2 and 2. Partition 3 is the third, order is 3 and 3. Last partition where you install the operating system, it has to be NTFS, Windows C, order has C, the 2 different partition ID. Okay, and on your image install here, you need to tell which drive you need to install the operating system on. The disk is 0, the partition ID is number 4. Over there, down here on the user data product key, I'm not sure if you can keep it empty. I would try to give it a try and see if you can work without the product key. This is a generic key that you can find when you Google it. Google for Windows 10 Enterprise generic key. That's what I used here. On your Windows deployment services, you need to tell your image selection. Over down here, you need to match what you have in your Windows deployment server for the information here. To find that, you can easily go to your Windows deployment server, right click on your installation image, go to properties and use the names. This is your image name, this is your file name, and that's your image group. They have to match, otherwise it's going to stop on the answer file when you come to this question. So to find it, right click and go to properties. You can find the information there. On your install to, again this is 0 and 4, tell which drive to install. You could skip this. I'm not sure which one is picking up for the answer. Delete one of these and see how it works. Login information, this is important as well. Make sure to match your domain. Your domain probably cop.contessa.com. It has to match that. The information, username and passwords has to be matched as on your domain. Otherwise, it will not authenticate to the Windows deployment server. That's all you need for the pre-installation environment. You don't need all the other answers down here because those are post-installation. That's my second answer file. Let me show that to you guys really quick. Right click, open file. I have auto unattended pass 2. This one, let's go back and look at the out-of-box experience first. This is where you answer, again, input local language, ENUS for US. Down here you have few other options. Out-of-box experience, this is where you answer agreement and few other stuff like what network you want to log in, the protect your PC, those questions. If you remember, you had to click manually. Those are some of the answers there. I did create a domain account here instead of a local account. Some students managed to create a local account and get through that as well. Mine, I did create a domain account. Make sure specify your right domain. Make sure you administrators group, if you have a separate OU, you can point that as well. Over here, On pass 4, that's where you need to add Windows unattended join. This is to make sure your Windows 10 machine joined to the domain. Once you add that, make sure you include true and true here. This is unsecure join, which means the clear text go through the network. Someone can capture if you have a man in the middle attack. Test purpose, it's okay. Here I have corp.local is my domain. Make sure you specify your domain. You also need to specify the credentials that has domain admin credentials to join a computer to a domain. Make sure you fill up this information as well. You probably don't need this pass over here. You can give it a try. This is just to tell the registered owner. That's all for the two answer files. Let me show you where I attach them. On your DC, oops, my DC, not F2, my DC, connect back again because I closed it. Okay, I call my answer file, open the Windows deployment. The first answer file, that's the Windows PE pre-installation, that needs to be attached to your Windows deployment server. So you can browse, make sure answer file is under remote install folder. Pick the right answer file from there. I have a bunch of them. I did put on the UEFI BIOS because the Windows 10 machine I created was generation 2, which used the UEFI BIOS. That's all you need to do there. And boot, make sure it's boot from the PXE. It's set up over here on the general section. There's nothing there. Client. I want to point out one thing here on the general section. ADDS. The name you use here, this is what used to rename your machine. If you want to match it to whatever your organization has it to, you can customize this to match. For an example, this is going to add administrator 1 as your machine name when it creates. That's the default name. You can change that as well. Second answer file need to go to your image. Click properties. Go to the bottom, checkbox here, allow image to install in the unattended mode. This one's used for the post installation. For an example, that's the out of box experience that second answer file I created for mine. This answer file will add the join your system to the domain as well. It comes back and do the out of box experience. So once you do that, you can close both these. I normally restart my server. That's just me being paranoid. You don't have to do that. Once you finish that, you can go to your test deploy machine I created here. You can create any virtual machine here. Only thing I made difference is make sure it's set up to boot from your network because we are using the PXE boot. I give extra memory and extra processes to the process to go faster. So let's fire up this machine and see what happens. So if everything works fine, I should not touch anything from now on. It should talk to my Windows deployment server, pull the bootable image files, then answer all the questions, create the partitions, and all I had to do is it should come back to the login screen, including the join domain as well. So once this goes all the way and pulls up the image, and once it starts installing, I'll post the video and come back when it's come to the login screen. So right now it's contacting my deployment server because it did pick an IP address and pulling the bootable image. If you do see down here, that's where the boot.vim file that we pulled up from your source files on the ISO file. That's where the boot image is pulled up. It will be talking to the WDS server and reading the answer file at this process, trying to authenticate. It takes a few seconds here. It's all depending on how fast your machine. Mine's not that fast, so it's all depending on your system. So I'm waiting. It's waiting game here. Okay, this is a good indication because it didn't ask any question or any pop-up windows. Right now it's probably checking to create the partitions that I specified on my answer file, and it will be probably in soon there. We'll pull the install image file. I do have a custom image where I installed the remote administrator toolkits. I'll show that to you guys because it's a custom image. I didn't use the standard image. That's the purpose of this exercise. So once this initiates the session, it should start installing, where I would pause the video and come back. Okay, right now it's getting the files for installation. We'll go through the setup. I'll come back to the video once it's finished installing and get me to the login screen. Okay, I unpause the video for a second. So it's finished copying all the files right now. Now it's going to restart. You can click restart it again. We're trying to do unattended, right? So now it's going to copy all the files and should be getting back to the Windows logon screen pretty soon. Right now what is it doing is finalizing the settings. So fingers crossed, let's see if this is correct. Looks good so far because it says sign into co-op, which means I know my computer joined the domain. Let's log in to see for the domain. My domain is co-op administrator and our password. Okay, looks good so far. It's logging into the domain. Once it finish setting up this user account, I'll check to make sure if it's actually joined the domain by checking the system properties. Okay, so I'm logged in. I'm gonna check the system properties to make sure. I do still like all the system properties. That's what I'm doing here. It says the domain is joined. Let's verify that over here. Okay, I'm already part of the domain. Remember I mentioned the computer name speak by that default name on Windows deployment server. So that's a good point, that I don't have to manually go and join all the 100 computers I deploy every day. Cancel over here. Let's make sure my custom image is working, because the only thing I did was I installed, before I captured the image, a remote administrator toolkit. So there we go, they're there. For an example, Active Directory, server manager should be somewhere up here. Thought I saw it. Yeah, server manager. So that tells me my custom image, custom software I have installed is already there. You can install Office, whatever the applications that you need before you capture the image, and deploy to 100 machines without even a single click on the deployment. So this is why we call it a zero-touch deployment or unattended deployment, because you don't have to do anything. It's automatically deployed using your answer file. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm glad to help you.